Hello, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Care Across Cultures. I'm your host Mirvan Hussain. You're listening to us on Link FM 96.7. Today we're tackling a subject that affects every community and yet too often remains hidden behind closed doors. Mental health in children and young people. The silence around mental illness costs lives, damages families and leaves young people suffering alone when help is available. Joining me today is a special guest who I've known for many years, and I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Hayat Khan, who is a consultant psychiatrist working in children and adolescent mental health services, or CAMHS for short. I will introduce Dr. Khan in a moment. Dr. Khan sees firsthand how stigma, cultural beliefs and misconceptions prevent families from seeking the support their children desperately need. Over the course of this programme, we'll be breaking down myths, challenging harmful beliefs and most importantly opening up a conversation that could change lives. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by me and my guests belong to us and are not necessarily those of Link FM or of the organisations we represent. Dr. Khan, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Very well, and I'm so pleased to be here today, and I'm really happy to see you after many years.
Thank you so much. Yes, we did work together at Barnsley, Kendry Hospital in Barnsley, yes. Didn't we? That was 2013.
Yes.
Yeah, that's when I left.
Yes.
But you stayed on for a while there, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I stayed there for about 2 years.
And a huge difference has been made as well. So you just started then, didn't you, as a...
I was in the second year of my training, yes.
In your training.
Yes.
And now you're a consultant.
Yes.
Amazing. Mubarak.
Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you. So, let's go into the questions. Mm-hmm. We want to talk about mental health, and we are talking about mental health. And the first sort of section that I want to look at is what really matters. So, what do we mean when we talk about mental health? What is it?
Yeah. So that's a very fundamental question, and I think it's important for our audiences to understand the concept of mental health. So it's basically how we cope with the stress, how we think, how we behave. It basically affects our way of dealing with stress and relating to people and making choices. So it's similar like physical health, but it does have quite significant impact on our life.
Fantastic, thank you. And is mental illness different from just feeling sad, worried or stressed?
Feeling sad and worried is just a normal part of our life. Mm-hmm. But when it starts impacting on our life, and especially if we look at it start affecting our personal life or social life or employment, or if we are young, our education, then it is something that we need to look at whether we are suffering from a mental disorder.
Right.
So it's beyond that. So for example, if your sadness has gone too far for more than 2 weeks, and then it has started impacting on your life and the areas that I just mentioned,
right,
then it needs to be looked at from mental disorder perspective.
Okay. So we're talking about CAMHS and we're talking about young people. So when I'm just helping my audience understand, CAMHS, children and adolescent mental children health services, what sort of age group are we looking at?
So we basically see children from even under 5 to 18 years old.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so, but usually those who are under 5 are seen by the pediatricians.
Right.
But there are cases where the complexity is quite significant, where pediatricians do require our help. So the lower age limit is not there, to be honest,
Right,
but
okay.
we see children up to age 18.
18, and then they transition into
So
adult mental
they are
health.
either transitioned to adult services, or if they are well enough, they can be discharged back into GP's care.
Of course, okay. So, help me understand something. So, you said that children as young as 5 or under 5 sometimes, need some support in mental health. What's the youngest child that you personally have been involved in a case?
So I've not personally seen anyone younger than 5.
Okay.
I've seen children age 5 and 6 years old, 7 years old,
Okay.
who usually have what we call neurodevelopmental conditions, such
Right.
as autism or ADHD or learning difficulties or disabilities,
Right.
and they have comorbid functional psychiatric disorders such as anxiety or challenging behaviors or self-harm. Yes.
So you mentioned a term, comorbidity.
Yes.
Help my audience understand, our listeners, what is comorbidity, because I'm sure many don't understand.
Yes, so morbidity is basically illness, and is like co-occurring conditions. So usually, these conditions don't come on its own. So you might have a physical health condition, but you might have a co-occurring mental health condition either associated with that or completely separate than that, or as a result of your physical health
Right,
problems.
okay.
Yeah.
So more than one condition?
Yes.
So that's what comorbidity means. Fantastic, thank you. So in terms of children, what are the most common mental health problems that you see in young people?
Yeah. So the most common mental health problems that we see are anxiety, depression, eating disorders, self-harm, and we also even see the the severe spectrum mental disorders such as even psychosis or early onset schizophrenia.
Right. Okay. So in this kind of situation, why is early intervention so critical?
Yeah, so again, this is a really good question for the sake of, based on the research that we have, that if you seek help earlier and get the right help earlier in the course of that illness or disorder, the prognosis is much better than if you seek help later in the course of that illness. So there's a concept we call DUP, which is that's just specifically linked to the psychosis and psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia. The DUP is like duration of untreated psychosis.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, so the longer is the DUP, the poorer is the prognosis.
Okay.
So this is just an example, but if you get the treatment right in the start, the prognosis is much better than if you would do down the line, and the disorder gets really complicated and complex, and then you have other associated risks and comorbidities.
So early intervention, very similar to the cancer and that I talk quite a lot about.
Absolutely.
Because, there are 4 stages of cancer. If we can identify it early, in the early stages, there's a lot more we can do.
Yes, exactly.
And the same thing with the
yes.
mental illness.
Yes.
That's great, thank you. So, I want to talk a little bit about South Asian communities and other minority communities. In many of these communities, mental illness is linked with shame, dishonour, or even seen as punishment or possession. And I want to have a chat about this. Why do you think these beliefs exist, and what damage do they cause, potentially?
So, in all close-knitted families and communities such as our Asian community, and I think most of the communities from the other side of the globe, like Eastern countries,
Yes.
we have really close-knitted families and communities where family honor, shame, reputation, these are like really strong concepts, and which does dictate our lives at individual levels. So we basically look at how we are seen by the community, by the family, and then larger the
larger
community, and how we are judged, and how. So basically, those things, which is another debate, why we are so kind of dictated by those external factors. But unfortunately, that's the case among our communities. So any mental disorder or any concerns about someone's mental health is seen as a matter of shame. That is bringing a shame to the family. It's seen as somebody's weak, or somebody's sad, or somebody's mad. So we have a really a negative connotation attached to the whole concept of mental disorders.
And what about this, this understanding that sometimes I've come across where people say that A, it's a punishment of a sin that you've committed, and B, that it's this possession, when I'm talking about jinn possession and those kinds of things. So let's take each one in turn in terms of a punishment, because many communities across the world, and it's not just South Asian communities, but many communities across the world, look at mental illness either as a punishment or as a blessing. I've seen that personally. Punishment because you committed a sin, and you're being, punished for it, or you're actually got a direct link with Allah. Yeah, you've been blessed.
Yes.
So help me understand those two aspects.
Yeah. So in our communities, so my focus is more on the Asian communities, but you're absolutely right that this is not limited to only South Asian communities. I mean, if you take an example of the African communities, obviously they've got so many cultural beliefs that are quite negatively impacting on in terms of the mental health. So similarly here, for example, the jinn possession, let's say, for example, which is like in our concept, it is a dissociative disorder or dissociative identity disorder. So people can experience a sense of depersonalization or derealization. But how the community or the society describe that concept for them is in the context of their cultural beliefs, which is dictated again by the religion.
Of course.
Religion is like really helpful in many ways, but our cultural practices and values can sometimes misconstrue those beliefs. So coming back to how this is impacted upon in terms of the mental health, that our people would take the person who's suffering with this mental condition, for example, or somebody, let's say, suffering with psychosis where they believe that God is talking to them, or they can see Allah, or they can see angels and things. They can be taken to the local Maulvi or Imams, because they think that basically he's a blessed person and something special is happening to them.
Yes.
Or they would take it in completely other way, that they are punished, they are cursed, shaitan or various other religious concept is applied, that they're basically they've done something really bad, and hence they're being punished. And I think this is something that we need to be tackling at a religious level as well as at schools and in general community, that people who are suffering with mental health disorders, exactly like how we suffer with physical health conditions, this is not a punishment, and this is not like, you have a special connection or something. It's a disorder, it's an illness, and illness does need help, and the help is in the form of medication or talking therapies, when we just focus on mental health.
And I think, I've done a lot of work. I've worked in mental health for a very long time. One of the things that I learned is that I think it was in the 12th century that Islam was the first people, I will not say really, but the first people who actually separated a hospital into mental health and physical health. That was in the 12th century. There was a hospital in So this concept that, you know, it's an illness rather than all of those things. Now, I know that, you know, we haven't got time to go into depth. Perhaps we could do another program on possession and those kinds of things. Yeah, but you know, there have been occasions that we know of, that I know of, where the doctors have said, but psychiatrist said, well, you know, there's nothing we can do. Yeah, and then, you know, whether it's an exorcism, for want of a better term, that's been carried, and the person has got well. So, you know, and that's a difficult one to look at, but. Perhaps we could do another programme than that. So one of the things that I'm wanting to ask you now, because we're going into a short break soon, is some families dismiss mental health as attention-seeking, especially in young children, and tell boys to man up, be a man. How do these attitudes affect young people in your experience?
Yeah, so seeking help, again, is seen as something really bad. And again, it has got this really negative, bad connotation that as if you are not unwell and you're just doing it for the sake of... It's like a behavioural problem. I see it in a completely different way. I think any person, whether that's a child, a young person, or an adult, seeking help is that cry for help is basically a positive thing, that they are seeking help, and that help should be offered to them. And dealing with that in a negative way, that they need to man up, they're just making things up, and basically implying that either they're lying or they are exaggerating things, and they're basically inadequate in some ways, and they need to be strong and come up. These are the things that we normally hear from, especially in our communities. And
I'm sure that you've heard it as well, where they say that there's a classic one, isn't there, from Pakistan and India, when a young man, he starts sort of misbehaving, as we like to say, and they say, oh, well, you know, we need to get him married.
Yes.
You know, that's a classic one from many decades ago. When I remember when I was young, that was around. It's still around now, you know.
Yes.
Let's get him married, as if marriage is going to suddenly, you know,
solve all the problems.
Solve all the problems.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a difficult one to do, because is it because you think that our understanding of mental illness?
Absolutely. So it's like we are going back to this, like, you know, what we discussed earlier in the program, that basically we don't see mental disorders as illnesses. Like, you wouldn't expect somebody who is suffering from severe diabetes, or they've got severe hypertension or stroke, for somebody to advise them to just get married, you will be fine.
No, thank you.
Yes, so I think that's the basic problem, that we don't see mental disorders as illnesses. We, as I said earlier in the program, we just attribute mental disorders to either being sad, like, you know, it's just in your control, you need to get up, just go out, to go to the gym, go to work and things like that, or you're just mad,
like, you know, pagal, as we like to say.
Pagal. So he's got like, you know, he's mentally inadequate in some ways.
So is that almost like for saying to that person that there's something wrong with you?
Yes, we blame them for
it's blaming, isn't it, and shaming.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with you, it's just the way that you are.
Yeah.
And you need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yes. And the other is like, either you're a bad person.
You're just a bad person.
Yeah. You're just not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So we, like, you know, one, that they're already going through a lot.
Yes.
Because, you know, if you see, and I'm sure, you know, because we work together, we've seen quite unwell people, and when they're suffering with severe enduring mental health problems, I'm without any exaggeration, if I say that you would forget physical health problems if you see somebody who is floridly psychotic, going through a lot of distress, where they would require, rapid tranquilization and things. So you could see the distress they're going through. Then you would realize how mental health disorder can impact on people, and how harsh and how severe and how extreme it can be.
Thank you so much for that. If you've just joined us, you are listening to Care Across Cultures with me, your host, Mirban Hussain, on Link FM. We've just been talking to Dr. Hayat Khan, a consultant psychiatrist in CAMHS. We're just going into a short break, and we will be back after the break. Back soon. Welcome back to Care Across Cultures with me, your host, Mirban Hussain, on Link FM 96.7. I've been spending the first part of the programme with a very old friend and colleague, Dr. Hayat Khan. We've been talking about mental health, mental illness. What is it? And how does it affect people? What are some of the common mental health problems that we see in young people? And how, in some communities, mental illness is looked with shame, dishonour, or even seen as punishment and possession. I'm going to talk about modern pressures, especially on young people. Because social media, cyberbullying, comparison culture, where all these TikToks and YouTubes and all these influencers are around, which weren't around when we were younger. And how much damage is this really doing to young people's mental health? Pick any one of those.
Yeah, so all of these are really important areas, and especially when we think about mental health generally as a population, but more so when we look at the mental health of children, young people, and even adults. The modern way of life has changed significantly over the past decade or so. It has brought really significant change. In the post-COVID, if you look at, the use of technology has become a norm.
Yes.
And I think not just because of how things are done now from work perspective, but even at home, everybody, every child, even babies are holding gadgets,
yes.
and they've got electronic devices with them all the time. The screen time has increased significantly, and I think even people sitting on a dinner table will be looking at the screens,
yes,
rather than having conversation with each other or focusing on what they're even eating.
I've even seen people going on dates, yeah?
Yes.
And they sat at a restaurant, yeah?
Yes.
And this is a young couple who may be just starting to go out, yeah?
Yeah.
And while they're eating, they're on their phones and they're actually texting each other.
Absolutely.
While they're at the table, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the human to human or person to person connection is going out of the window, to be honest. People are really in contact with people thousands of miles away, but not with people in the same house.
In the same house.
Or in the same office.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is the harsh reality of today's modern world. The impact of that on the mental health is enormous. Social media, for example, you just mentioned, can be really helpful for so many young people who are really isolated in the communities, especially those with neurodevelopmental condition who really struggle to have friendships and social life in the community, especially if they are out of education and stay at home. Social media or having connections online can be really, really helpful for them. So there is some positive aspect to that, but the negative aspect of the social media use or being online is also quite significant, and that would include, you mentioned cyberbullying, where people are, especially young people, especially the vulnerable, are bullied quite badly. Now, in the real life bullying, there is a way out. So if you are bullied at school, you come home, at least there is an escape.
Yes.
Yeah. From the cyberbullying, you're in your home, you're in your room, you're in your bed, but you're still quite vulnerable to that cyber because
so that's 24/7.
Absolutely, yes. And the impact of that on your mental health can be really detrimental. And I've seen an upsurge of cases, especially the eating disorder. When I used to be a consultant in the eating disorder service here in Sheffield, the upsurge and disproportionate crisis of young people requiring inpatient bed soared up across the country. And when we looked at it, the social media use was one of the significant factors.
Right.
So yes, it can have really significant impact on people's life, especially the youngsters.
So, in a case like that, say for example, someone who's 13, 14 years old at school, and they're getting bullied, cyberbullying. What options are there open for them? How can they? What should they do?
Yes, so supporting somebody who have either concerns about their mental health or there are concerns about the contributory factors for them to develop significant mental health issues, such as, for example, being bullied, whether that's in real life or online. The help is available at different levels. So from mental health perspective, we have GPs in the primary care. They can be contacted with regards to the concern that the young person or the family have about the young person. Schools are really good at picking the signs of some child having a problem with
because it's going to affect their school life as well,
yes.
isn't it? Yes.
The teachers are really good at that, and I think most teachers have been trained to look at, from mental health perspective, the child or the young person is really struggling, and then they can explore it with them. I think to provide them with safe space where they can express what's been happening with them, and then they can make a self-referral, or the families can make referral to the secondary mental health services like CAMHS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services.
So what can a mum and dad do if they find out? Or what are the signs that they should be looking for? Because from my understanding, it's that children who are being cyberbullied or bullied sometimes don't share that. So what are the sort of critical signs that parents should be picking up on?
Yeah, so one of the biggest problems we see somebody, especially like under 18s or children or young people being bullied, is that the victim is in a vicious cycle of not being able to let the adults know about it, and that's part of the bullying. And they are blackmailed, or they're worried about being humiliated, or even bullied worse than what they're going through already if they disclose that to anyone. And I think they get into this vicious circle of being bullied more and more and feeling more and more helpless. So I think what the parents need to understand is that obviously striking a balance is the key. So they should have a time, the screen time, and should be there should be a timetable where they can spend time together without on the screens. And when they are on the screens, they should have, especially the young ones, to have no passwords on their accounts, and being aware of what they're doing, what their activities are online, and if they're going to sites which are really damaging, and especially social media sites or just random chat sites where they can have contact
befriend people who may not be who they
by
are.
really unpleasant people.
And there have been many cases like that, haven't there?
So the subtle signs would be that the child would appear anxious, restless, being really guarded, really quiet, and sort of more and more limited to their rooms, being away from the family life, and that gradual decline into that needs to be looked at, whether they're on their phone all the time, and when they're on the phone, what
What
their
are they
appearances are, whether there are
Yeah.
signs of them becoming really distressed, and if the parents are asking about whether they need to get access to the phone, the reaction to that can be really important to see
Difficult,
whether
yeah.
there's something going on.
Right.
So obviously there are older,
There are those-
like 16 plus, they can have their own life, and obviously they are capacitors to make those decisions. And
Yeah.
things. But I'm talking about the young ones.
The
and
young
they need
ones,
to
yeah.
have that. Even the older ones to have that
Yes.
frank
Yeah.
conversation with them.
Yeah.
That if something like that is happening, they need to be disclosing it.
So there's a lot of things that parents, families can do in terms of making sure that their children are safe.
Absolutely.
One of the key things that I want to discuss with you is also there's this exam pressure, okay, and family expectations. I thought that the South Asian community has now stopped wanting their children to be doctors and lawyers. But I've been speaking to lots of sort of communities out there, and it seems to me that is still the preferred choice. Now, we can't all be doctors and lawyers. Sometimes it's not what we want to do. Sometimes we don't have the capacity for that. Okay. Now, how can children cope, or how are children coping when there is so much pressure about family honour? Because honour is one of those big things in many South Asian cultures, isn't it? Is it?
Yes.
And knock, yeah?
Gee.
So what are your views on that?
So there are two aspects to this. One is in terms of the pressure that we feel as South Asian individual, in terms of like from our parents when we were growing up, that we need to be successful in life, and the definition of success was to be either a doctor or engineer.
Yes.
And I think we have carried on that mentality here into the UK.
Yeah.
And here I think we perhaps have gone really stronger in those views and opinions, and imposing those upon our children without realizing that every child comes with a different set of abilities and strengths, and they can be amazing politicians, they can be amazing accountants or lawyers or astronauts or
yes.
So it could be anything, but because our own upbringing has been such where we are really feeling anxious and worried about what would happen if they weren't doctors or engineers. So we become really worried about it. So basically we are projecting our insecurities and anxiety upon our children without realizing the stress that we are putting on them, and without realizing the impact of that stress on their mental well-being and health. So I think my advice would be to the parents that please do assess your children with the help of their teachers. That what are their strengths, what are their natural aptitude, what they want to do in life, rather than imposing your wishes and your desires and insecurities upon them. So that's the starting point. For the children and young people, I would say that they should have those frank conversations with the parents, what they want to do and achieve in life, and how they can be successful in life without becoming doctors or engineers. I'm not saying that people shouldn't become doctors or engineers, but they should have open weave and have the freedom to do what they want to do in life. Not necessarily everybody has to do the top GCSEs and become successful in life. There are people out there who are really successful businessmen.
Of course,
or they can be good at so many
pop
other things.
Stars, footballers, artists. There's all kinds of people, isn't there?
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about families now. If a parent is worried about their child's mental health right now, somebody's listening to us. What's the very first step they should do?
So depending on what are they worried about, if they are worried about their child's mental health, and the worry is really significant in terms of the risk, they are worried about the safety of a child, this is a crisis, they need to ring the crisis team,
crisis team,
go to A&E, or if it is less severe, they can contact the GP.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing they need to do.
Or NHS 111? Is
Yes,
that
they
something?
can ring 999, can ring 111.
Yeah, any of those.
They can go to the A&E, and the mental health liaison teams are there.
So the key thing is that reach out to somebody.
Absolutely,
reach out.
So help is
a
available
medical
there.
professional. Reach out to them.
Absolutely. So as I said, there are GPs are there, the schools are there, the mental health community teams are there, which we call the crisis team, and they can go to. I mean, the easiest would be to go to A&E if they're really worried about the safety of a child.
Yes.
They can go there.
So it's not just the safety of the child, but also if they feel that the child may be a danger to someone else.
Absolutely, yeah. So when we talk about risk isn't just about risk to the individual from themselves. Risk can be from other people to themselves, from them because of being really vulnerable. So parents can be really worried about the child being, as we discussed earlier, being bullied or being exploited or being groomed or things like that. So if they are really struggling in terms of having challenging behaviors and becoming a risk to other people, again, that is an indication that they need to seek help, they need to go to the GP, or if it is really severe, they need to ring 999 or go to A&E, or if the risk is too high to others, they can even ring the police.
Now, there is another issue, isn't there, because something called Section 36, 35, mental health?
Yes.
Does that apply to children as well?
So are you talking about the Mental Health Act?
The Mental Health Act, yes.
So Mental Health Act can be applied to children, but usually the younger ones, for example, under 16, we obviously rely more on what we call the parental responsibility, the PR, and that comes under the legislation which we call Children's Act.
Right.
So because parents are all the carers who have the parental responsibility, can make those decisions for them, including mental health care. So if they need admissions or if they need support with regards to their mental health, they can be provided under this Children's Act, and that is basically the parents making the decisions.
Right, okay.
Or 16, or those who have capacity, and they can make the decision. Again, we can either rely on their capacity to make those decisions, and if the need be, then we can apply the Mental Health Act. But as I said, we can apply Mental Health Act even at a younger age
across
as well,
the board,
for those especially where parents can't make those decisions.
Right.
For example, somebody needs to come into the hospital and have a treatment that is beyond the remit of the family to be making those decisions. So, and if they are suffering with severe mental disorder that warrants an admission and treatment in a hospital setting, yes, we can apply Mental Health Act. So there's no lower age limit.
There's no, okay. So one of the key things I want to talk about now is that we talk about this misunderstanding, a lack of education around mental illness as being an actual sort of illness in terms of, the same thing as a physical illness. And then we look at it as from a cultural and religious viewpoint. Now, what can community leaders and faith leaders do in terms of raising the awareness around these issues? What would be your sort of take on that?
Yeah, so I think the religious leaders, community leaders, and elders of the society can do a lot with regards to mental health. I think the starting point would be to spread that awareness about the mental health and tackle those misconceptions, the stigma, the shame, the family honor and reputation, and all those things that has been mixed with the mental disorder being really big hurdle to seek help. So I think that's the important thing that they need to tackle at whether that's a mosque level, community center levels, or generally in gatherings where they can talk about the mental health. That there's no shame in talking about your mental health. There's no shame in seeking help, and this is not a weakness. Rather, coming forward, seeking help is
Is
a
a
sign
strength.
of strength, and this needs to be, I think, to be praised and to be
Yes.
commended.
Yeah. Okay. So, what message would you want to give a young person today who feels too scared or too ashamed to ask for help?
My message to a young person who is suffering like that is that, one, they're not alone. Help is out there. They need to come forward. They need to they need to express that those thoughts or those things that they're suffering with without any
fear, shame, yeah.
shame or like there are no repercussions or anything. They're not seen as weak or they're not being judged. The help is out there, and they can seek that help at a family level, at school level, go to the GP, or even ring us straight away.
Yeah. So, it's a key message, isn't it? There's help out there.
Yes.
You're not alone. It doesn't matter who you reach out to, how you reach out to.
Absolutely.
There are plenty and plenty of people. It might be your school teacher that you get really on well with.
Yes.
Yeah? It might be someone, a friend at school. It might be your neighbour. It might be your auntie, uncle.
Yes.
Please go and talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
That's the thing to do.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. So, I'm just wanting to thank you, Dr. Khan, for discussing what is quite a sensitive topic. We are coming to the end of the programme very soon. You've been listening to Care Across Cultures with me, Mirban Hussain, your host. I've been talking to the wonderful Dr. Hayat Khan, consultant psychiatrist. We've been sharing some information around mental health, mental illness, what it means, what it is, what kind of support's available. And I want to thank Dr. Khan for his time, his expertise and your honesty today. And hoping that these conversations will save lives. Because if one person who's listening today acts on some of the advice that you've given, that'd be fantastic. I want to thank our listeners for joining us, for listening with open hearts, and I hope for sharing what you've learned today with others in your community. And a key thing that Dr. Hayat said was asking for help is not weakness. It's wisdom, and speaking up isn't about bringing shame, it's about bringing hope. I'm going to ask Dr. Khan for one last message he would like to give our listeners today.
Yes, so my message to all the listeners is that if you are or your loved ones are suffering with any signs of mental disorder or condition, please seek help. And I repeat the same message that you just mentioned, that there's no shame in seeking help. There's no health without mental health. People need to come forward. People need to talk about it, normalize seeking help. And it's absolutely fine to seek that help from your doctor, from your school teacher, from your parent, from anybody, any adult that you can trust. But you need to seek help, and please do so.
Thank you so much. That's the end of the programme. Join us again next Tuesday at 11 o'clock as we continue to break the silence on issues that matter. You've been listening to Care Across Cultures. Until next week, Allah Hafiz.